Well, hello again, everyone. Happy 2022. So, a new year brings with it a new series of videos. And this is going to be a series that's specific to this particular year, 2022, because if we get in the Wayback Machine and travel back 30 years from now, we were just beginning the year 1992, and I was a 13, soon to be 14-year-old, I guess, teenager, beginning my teenage years. And I had pretty much finally discovered musically, and I guess movies and other stuff. That was like when I really started to figure out like who I was, what made me tick, what did I really dig. And that year, luckily enough, ended up being an amazing year for album and movie and other type releases. And so I thought, man, everything from that year, a year chock full of great shit, all of that shit is going to be 30 years old this year in 2022. So I thought, man, there's going to be so much stuff from 1992 to talk about that's turning 30. So I thought, well, why don't I just celebrate the stuff that's turning 30 every month this year? So yes, a monthly series of videos that I'm going to be calling 30 Years Ago This Month. As the new year began in 1992, the #1 album in America was Michael Jackson's Dangerous. But not for long, because all of a sudden, an album that nobody thought was going to be successful totally eclipsed it and took over the #1 spot, and that was Nirvana's Nevermind. And in movie theaters in America, probably the biggest movie to come out that month is one that a lot of people probably don't even remember, and it was called The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Where Rebecca De Mornay is like a crazy lady who loses her child, and so she tries to steal another lady's child or something like that. I don't really remember. I saw it in the theater, but that's the last I heard of it. But the movie was a big success. It was #1 for 4 weeks in a row, which is funny for a movie that I kind of have to like scrunch my face up a little bit and go, do I remember that movie? But fuck, it was a month at the #1 spot. But you know what? There was another movie that came out in January of 1992 that has remained one of my favorite movies of all time. Didn't quite have the success that Hand That Rocks the Cradle had, but in my life, it's been way more successful, and we're going to talk about the soundtrack that came out in 1992, although I think it may have come out at the end of 1991, but shit, that doesn't matter. The movie, Juice. Amazing movie with Omar Epps and Tupac. Don't remember these guys' names, but they rule in the movie also. You even get a little cameo, not really a cameo, a really small role from an actor you may not have heard of him called Samuel L. Jackson.
You done slid down a razor blade and landed in an alcohol river.
But the real thing I want to talk about is this soundtrack, because it's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I mean, not only do you have Uptown Anthem by Naughty by Nature and fucking Know the Ledge by Eric B. and Rakim, but I mean, you also have fucking Too Shorts on here, Big Daddy Kane, who the fuck else is it? EPMD, Salt and Pepper, Cypress Hill. There's a whole lot of good shit on this soundtrack, and it's as good as the fucking movie. It's a movie that I still probably watch maybe at least once every couple years and thoroughly enjoy it every single time. So yeah, 1992 January was the month of Juice. Also released in January of 1992 is the debut album from a very lesser known grunge band from Seattle, Washington called My Sister's Machine. And their first album is called Diva, and pretty damn strong album. They were actually a band that had a little bit of acclaim and hype as the album was coming out, but then very quickly it kind of went nowhere. Probably because if you really were kind of, looking for something different, they were really, really in line with this kind of stuff that Alice in Chains were doing. Funnily enough, one of the guitar players was in an old incarnation of Alice in Chains back when Lane Staley had a band called Alice in, with an apostrophe, Chains. So I guess there's the connection there. But they sounded very of the time, but it's still a very enjoyable album. But this album didn't do well. They would release one more album and then break up in 1994, and that's all she wrote for My Sister's Machine. Also released in 1992, this month, 30 years ago, the second mini album from the band Therapy. I mean, I always say Therapy, but then when I read it, I go, well, there's a question mark, so you're supposed to say Therapy? Pleasure Death. I mean, essentially, you could call it an EP or a mini. It's 6 tracks, but it's fucking killer, and it's so Therapy is a band. A lot of you probably already know them. They're big in Ireland, and because they're from Ireland. Did I say that? They are. At the beginning, around the time of this EP, they were way more in line with like noise rock and stuff like that. I guess they still have a little bit of that today, but later on, throughout the 90s, they experimented with a lot of different things. They're a very interesting band who are not afraid to try different shit. And really, like, this EP doesn't really sound like a lot else that's going on. I mean, you could equate it to some noise rock stuff, but it's got its own little odd quirkiness, and it's totally enjoyable. And it's 30 years old this month. Pleasure Death. So January of 92 isn't jam-packed with a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. So I thought I would take the opportunity to talk about an album that came out in 1992, but I can't find any information on exactly when it came out in 1992. So I'm just going to talk about it in January's episode. If anybody knows the real date, I apologize, but I'm including it here. The second album from the LA band Love Hate, Wasted in America. I love this band. Was great. Well, they're still around, although with just one member, Jizzy Pearl, who's been a singer in a lot of bands, so you may have heard his name before. But this album is my favorite Love Hate album because they were a band that like could easily fit in with like the hair bands of the time, but also they were almost like an alternative version of that. Especially on here, there's a lot of odd songwriting choices, and some songs have odd time signatures, which is stuff that you never saw in any of like the other LA hair bands. But it makes for a really, really enjoyable album, and it makes them a very unique band of the time. But like a lot of other bands around that time, the tiny bit of success they had, I do say tiny, wasn't enough. And I think that the band split up, I want to say soon after this album. I might be wrong. But, there's been varying incarnations of Love Hate featuring Jizzy Pearl over the years. But this album's great, so I had to talk about it. But I don't know exactly when it came out. So it's to me, it's a January release. The beginning of the new year brings Wasted in America, which some of us should be. Anyway, cool. That's it. That's all I got for January of 1992. Obviously, there may be things that came out that some of you out there are like, well, why didn't you talk about this? Well, because it wasn't on my radar, or it's not anything that I'm really that interested in. And this is my fucking show, right? All right. So yes, I will be here again this time next month to talk about all the things that will be turning 30 years old in February of 1992. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave your comments. Let me know what you thought. Of course, if I did miss stuff that you think is important, put it in the fucking comments because it should get mentioned somehow. So yeah, that's all I got for this episode of 30 years ago this month. I will see you all again. Well, I'll see you before next month because I'll put out another fucking video. But for this series of videos, I will see you all again next month.